feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some
I
soccer.
don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the
Call
Cowboys.
this college rule.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris here. Before we begin, as always, we're recording down here at Engle Studio in downtown Tucson for all of your audio needs. Go check out our socials there down below to keep following us and keep up with the podcast. And also shoot us suggestions as far as episodes you'd like to see in sports figures or sports events, because we're here for you. We're here for the fans. So give us a like, follow, subscribe, and just follow us on all those platforms.
Yeah, give us a follow. Stalk us a little. Before we get into this, I have to say, a couple of hungover dudes. Somebody's team
Oh, gosh.
going to the finals.
Oh, this needs to be like District 5, everybody, for those Aztecs. Come on, Dutch. Lead them like Gordon Bombay. Oh, boy.
He's getting nervous already.
One more day, Chris.
I
One
know.
more day until
Monday night, and we'll see it.
I will be hungover for good or bad reasons Tuesday morning. So,
Yeah, let's get into it.
And we're talking basketball today.
I know. That's why I
basketball.
had to get into it.
All
We're
right.
talking about Karl Malone, one of the squeakiest clean, no bad things he's ever done off of the court. You know what I mean?
Absolutely no controversy with this man
That's what I'm looking for.
whatsoever. And Hall of Fame guy.
He is a Hall of Famer.
He is a Hall of
That's
Famer.
actually the first true thing we said about
Yes,
him.
that's very true. Karl Anthony Malone, born July 24th in 1963 in Summerfield, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Which is near the Arkansas-Louisiana border. Same area Roy's from.
Oh,
Yeah, this area.
friend of the pod.
Friend of the podcast, yeah. He was the youngest of 9 kids raised on a farm by a single mom, Shirley.
Yep.
Want to talk about his dad for a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. His dad, Shedrick, just married someone else and lived with a completely different family.
Yes.
So growing up in rural Louisiana with a single mom, basically poverty, hard work. That's, his life was not easy growing up.
They were rural area, all of that. So like they grew up on like a farm and like type things. I saw his dad actually, I think, killed himself when he was like 12.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So he was dealing with that, and so he had a pretty rough childhood. But
One word, it was active though, because he
was
was
just-
really into hunting and fishing and doing things outdoors. He worked on the farm loading bales of hay. I mean, he very country strong, very Bo Jackson-y,
Yes.
very Steve McNair type of.
very natural, strong. Like I love the Bo Jackson, who's just like, I've never touched a weight in my entire life. And you're like, what?
So growing up though, basketball was really popular.
Yep.
For whatever reason in this area, basketball was super popular. They'd have, everywhere you'd go, there'd be backboards on telephone poles and nets and.
Well, it's interesting because I think if like football was bigger, he would have been, because of his size, been into football. But luckily, basketball was the big thing. And I saw his mom was so poor, she actually put a ball on layaway.
Yeah.
So she paid it like 50 cents, 25 cents whenever she had it. And then they ended up getting the basketball. And that's like his first,
And when you're
Well-
someone who eventually grows up to be 6'9", about 260 pounds, you're going to be quite the force in small-town Louisiana basketball.
Yes, definitely.
He, in high school, it said he was quite raw, but just physically dominating, a man among boys at the high school level. Just an absolute stud, scoring, rebounding, blocking shots. Like, the whole team ran through Karl, essentially.
Well, yeah, he was on a different level, but like they were saying, totally raw, where he just didn't have the coaching that he probably should have had at that young age. And this is where, when we see him go to college, a lot of people were kind of not like talking shit, but being like, oh, he probably should have tried to go to a bigger college.
Yeah, he goes to Summerfield High School. It was a 3-time, they won 3 straight titles there,
yes.
which is amazing for Louisiana Class C. Eddie Sutton tried to recruit him to Arkansas, which was like a very powerhouse type of program at that time.
Well-established program. And he ends up going to Louisiana Tech.
Which is crazy, but he wants to be close to home in Ruston there in northern Louisiana.
Yeah.
He actually sits out his first season due to poor academics. He actually takes out a loan to pay for his own tuition.
Yes.
And he said that's the best decision he ever made in his life. getting his books in order, and then focusing completely on basketball. They said he was playing in intramural games and just destroying people.
Yeah, because
could you imagine if Karl Malone showed up to your intramural basketball game as like just a regular college student?
It's like, all right, we're picking teams. We'll take him.
that large fellow over there with the muscles.
With the muscles. Yeah, it's interesting to see his path. It's almost like a Dennis Rodman, where it was like he wasn't necessarily going to make. He wasn't like scouted, and he didn't have this like just coaching at these levels that a lot of these guys have.
No, and I mean, it's not like he was working as a janitor at an airport either. It's just like that. But I mean, a small town, lack of visibility essentially by the rest of the country, and just I want to play close to home, even though it's probably not as beneficial in terms of upping your draft status. But when you're as good as Karl Malone, it does not effing matter.
No, and he really developed in this, the 3 years he ended up playing, because he didn't play freshman year. But let's
82-83. He's the Southland Conference Player of the Year, averaging 20 and 10. He's pretty much, and that leads into his NBA career, where it's an automatic 20 and 10 with an automatic 50 to 55% field goal percentage, because that's the other thing. He's still super raw. He hasn't necessarily developed a really good outside shot yet, but he can run the floor like a deer, play in the paint, and he was a good passer too.
He was. He had what everybody says with the soft hands, where like the big guys sometimes are just kind of clunky with it. He was so smooth with the ball, and like you said, he was so fast for a power forward that it was hard for other power forwards and centers to like keep up with him. Yeah,
some might say, and some have considered him the greatest power, and we'll get into the greatest power forward to have ever played basketball at the 4 spot. He has a 58.2 field goal percentage in his first year of college basketball. 83-84, he goes for 18.7 and 9.3 rebounds. And then in 84-85, the team goes 23-9, wins the conference title, go to the NCAA tournament for the first time in their history, and they get all the way to the Sweet 16.
Yep.
And Karl's all-regional in there. He was the 3-time Southland, All-Southland Conference. He basically just completely dominated the rest of college basketball. And they're beating in this tournament Pitt, Ohio State, and they barely lost to Oklahoma in the Sweet 16.
And that's when I feel like everybody really paid attention to where I bet before they were like, yeah, but they're in the Southeastern Conference. It's how like
it's almost like David Robinson when they made that tournament run where you're just like, Navy has a basketball team?
Yes, and they're like, oh, this guy is a real player.
This guy is great. The rest of them are probably in that Village People music video. But this guy right here, and this is the era where Karl gets his nickname, the Mailman.
Which is great.
Because he always delivers and also shoots up. No, he doesn't do that like the regular mailman.
The Mailman, because he hates dogs. It was a weird one.
I think they called Ted Kaczynski the Mailman.
Different one.
Different kind of mail.
We get it.
Oh, jeez.
I'll tell you what, Ted's outside game was on point.
I mean, he could score from anywhere.
I mean, the jumpers,
So in the 85 NBA draft, because Karl leaves school a year early, his family, single mom raising 9 kids, going to need that financial support, and he's allowed to come out because he sat out his freshman year.
And he's
he's played 4 years, or been out of high school for 4 years.
You can just tell some guys are ready. And he was one of those guys that, like, he obviously wasn't going back to, like, a great program. You know what I mean? It just some guys are just ready.
Sometimes it's just time.
Yes.
So in the 85 draft, this is a good one. This is the first one with the lottery. We have Patrick Ewing in this draft. We also have Charles Oakley and a couple guys we did episodes on.
Yeah.
Chris Mullen, as well as, even though he didn't get drafted by the Hawks, he got drafted by the Hawks, but he couldn't go there. Venture into a little place called the Sabone Zone. Arvydas Sabonis. Well, Karl was going to be a lottery pick, though. A lot of people assume.
But a lot of people thought he was going to go higher. He thought for sure he was going to go 8th to Dallas. And that it's kind of like this thing that you could tell maybe rubbed them the wrong way, where I bet Dallas was like, we're 100% picking you. There's not another guy that we're going to pick. Like that kind of shit that teams do.
Dallas really wasn't great at drafting people in this era, let's just say.
And they end up drafting Detlef Shrimp, who's good.
He was a good player, but
he's fine.
Never for the Mavericks.
Yes. And you just see him drop to 13, where the Jazz pick him up, and luckily for him, this is like the combo that will go down in history. You know what I mean?
He goes to the Utah Jazz where they don't allow music. But
So
he makes
true.
beautiful music with the guy they drafted in the first round of the historic 84 draft, point guard John Stockton.
And it's such a combo that people still talk about it as like they're the best at executing the pick and roll we've ever seen. That kind of stuff where it's just the amount of points that he racks up for the Jazz is insane.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, we'll get into how many points he scored and where he finished at the end of his career later, but it is, I mean, arguably one of the greatest point guards and then arguably one of the greatest power forwards on the same freaking team.
Yep.
And they're both about the same age. 85, 86, he was third in Rookie of the Year voting. Mind you, he's still pretty raw, but he's playing. And the other thing about Karl, durability. Like our Emmitt Smith episode, this guy just does not miss games unless he's suspended.
Well, it's crazy when you look back at how many games he misses through injury outside of his last season. I think it's like 8 games or something.
And 3 of them he was suspended for elbowing our friend Isaiah Thomas.
Which is so weird because Isaiah is literally one of the nicest guys in the league. Nobody was just like, everybody was like, why would you do this? And he was like, it was an accident. He's one of my best friends.
He's like, I have foresight, everyone. So he's all rookie that year in 85, 86, 14.9 points a game, 8.9 rebounds. They lost in the first round of the postseason to the Mavericks, but this is another thing about Karl. He's logging all these games, and he's making the postseason every single year for Utah and later for another team.
Well, him and Stockton really turned around this Jazz franchise where they were a losing franchise, and then literally the time that he's there with Stockton, they always have a winning record, and they always go to the playoffs and lose.
And you know who they just left this team after 85, 86? Former scoring champion we did an episode on, Adrian Dantley.
Yeah,
that's
Dantley,
right.
Damn. It's so
Isaiah
true because
Thomas's best friend.
They went from really a singular, kind of Dantley scoring to this.
Yeah, the ball doesn't go to die
combo.
with John Stockton. It's here you go, or easy layup for 2.
It's the pick and roll. They're gonna pick and roll you to death. It's insane.
You know it was coming. It's like stop, they're already dead. 86, 87, he led the team with 21.7 points a game and 10.4 rebounds. Then in 87, 88, it's his first All-Star game. His first team All-NBA, and the first of 14 in a row for him as far as All-Star game appearances.
Well, this is when, and like we were saying in college, his 15-footer, the mid-range jumper that was like so popular in this era. When he came in, it was not good. He literally, it was not, and he worked on it those like 3 years.
His
and
work ethic was insane, too.
By 88, he was one of the best mid-range. And that's what they were saying was like he came into the NBA and he didn't have that little hook shot. And it was like 2 years later, they were like, oh, that famous hook shot
all
that
the
he's always
sports
had.
writers were saying are just like every offseason he'd pick something to work on to improve and just do it. It almost reminds me with his shooting with Kawhi Leonard. When he left San Diego State, he was not a particularly great outside shooter at all. And then after working with the Spurs, now he's just freaking insane. Yeah. 27.7 points a game that year in 88. 12 career high in rebounds with 12 per game, and just a double machine.
That's what we were saying. He's such a 20-10 guy, and it exceeds more. It's almost like a 25 and 12. You know what I mean? Like that's almost which is even crazier.
And Stockton's just like, oh, I'm just gonna get the ball to our best scorer.
Yep.
This is pretty easy. So they make the postseason. They win a postseason series against the Blazers in the first round, but they lose to the Lakers in 7.
Lakers go on to win the
title.
But they were saying
we're finding we're going to find a lot more with that with the Jazz and their postseason.
But they were saying like this is really like the future's bright because they literally took the champs to 7. Like that was like the thought around this
They're
team.
starting to allow music. Kevin Bacon showed up and is starting to dance there to punch dance music.
You guys can have one or the other, basketball or music. What do you want?
Ooh, I don't know.
Malone signs a huge contract that year, 10 years, $18 million. I know they don't
This is almost Scottie Pippen-like, but at least they probably renegotiated with him to keep him happy.
They 100% did. I know they don't do contracts to this length anymore because they just can't anticipate the inflation, or at least it really screws the players over. But when it was signed, people were like, that is such a great deal for him and that kind of stuff, because it was. I mean, like 10 mil or a couple of mil a year, it's but damn, does it look bad 3 or 4 years down the road?
Well, they did right by Karl. I mean,
they did. They renegotiated, but it's just a funny,
So Frank Layden leaves the head coaching job to become the GM, and this is the year heading into 88-89 where Jerry Sloan takes over.
Yep.
And this is kind of the era where everyone kind of remembers the Jazz and how really awesome that they were. 88-89, 29.1 points a game and 10.7 rebounds.
It's crazy.
Wins the All-Star Game MVP, All-NBA first team. Unfortunately, they get swept in the first round of the playoffs by Run TMC.
And this is
Golden State.
This is the thing that kind of knocked everybody back down, was they were saying, like, we're going to have a great run in the playoffs, and then they literally get swept by the Warriors.
Their postseasons are awesome, shitty, awesome, shitty, awesome.
It's so true.
88-89 career high 56.2 field goal percentage. He literally could score from everywhere.
Yep.
But I mean, anything inside that 3-point arc, he's draining. Career high 31 points per game and 11.1 rebounds. Dropped in 61 for a career high against the Bucks this year. But they lost in round 1 to the Suns in 5 games.
And this, I mean, to be honest, this is when the West was brutal.
This was my favorite era because the West had like 7 great teams.
That's what I mean.
They weren't the
Blazers,
Jordan Bulls, but anybody could do it.
Blazers, Lakers, Rockets, Suns, and the Jazz was literally one of the great teams, and they kept running into,
other people.
Barkley and
Barkley had a great quote about him. He said, "Oh, he's a redneck."
Yeah.
He had that hunting quote like, "Karl, what are you gonna go hunt? Oh, mountain lion, black bear. You ever heard of squirrels and deer?" Oh, Charles.
Oh, Charles.
We need to do an episode on you.
Definitely.
90-91, 29 points a game with 11.8 rebounds. Then they go to the playoffs and beat the Suns in the first round, but they lose to Portland in the Western Conference semifinals, and Portland, I believe this was the year, or no, this is the year before they make the finals against Chicago. He was his 3rd straight All-NBA first team, though, for Malone. So mind you, he's in a small market, but he's just absolutely dominating and one of the NBA's brightest stars.
Yes. And he's starting to get looked at as more of like an MVP at this time, because he puts up the solid numbers and he doesn't miss a game. That's what everyone was saying, was just like it's crazy the consistency that he has.
The guy is doing this in an era with Michael Jordan and arguably the most competitive era of professional basketball.
I would say the most defensively competitive.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
You could play defense in these days. You had to hand check the shit out of people and shove them to the ground. 91-92, another 28 points a game season. This is the year that he elbows Isaiah Thomas on December 14th. Gives him a little love tap, which causes 40 stitches. Oh, Karl.
I did see, he said, he was just like, it was an accident. Isaiah's one of my best friends. We all love him.
Gritting his teeth the whole time. This is when the Jazz put themselves on the map as far as, okay, now there's professional basketball in Utah because they make an awesome run through the postseason.
Yes.
They beat the Clippers and Sonics in the first 2 rounds, and they go to the Western Conference Finals against the Blazers. It's the franchise's first Western Conference Finals appearance, or Conference Finals appearance ever, even from the Pistol Pete days in New Orleans, where they did allow music. Unfortunately, they lose to the Blazers in 6 games and left ringless again, unfortunately, for Karl.
Well, they really just can't get through these really West Coast, Lakers, Blazers, that kind of shit. So you can see that they just run into these better teams essentially at this time. And this is when Karl kind of starts to talk some shit in between seasons, saying that they need more help.
Yeah, because him and Stockton can't do it alone. You need one more piece. And tried as they might, it's not like the front office didn't try.
No, and they really did try to slip other pieces in, but it just didn't pan out.
Like, before the 92-93 season, I did want to point out, Karl is selected for the Dream Team.
Yeah, he's on the Dream Team.
Which is dope. And they go and beat the shit out of everybody, the greatest collection of basketball talent at the 92 Olympics. And we wins a gold medal. So no NBA title yet, but he gets a gold medal, which is good.
Beat Iceland.
That's right. Can you imagine an Icelandic basketball team? It's like my Samuel L. Jackson bit does like the reverse cool running. Say ya again, Bjorn. I fucking dare you, motherfucker.
Shit.
Making some comments about Magic Johnson.
I was just going to say, so Magic Johnson comes out having HIV, and to Karl's credit, I think this is the only time I'm actually going to say this. They didn't really know much about HIV.
No, I mean, it was still a mystery in those days.
And that's what he was kind of saying, was just kind of like, we don't really know if, he gets a cut and then whatever, which it really doesn't, it's not going to transfer like that. He would have to, fall down and have Magic's cock fall in his ass. But
yeah, I mean, and it's not like Isaiah Thomas insinuating things about Magic. It's just like, I don't feel safe because I don't know anything about this.
That's really what it was. And he was a country boy. So just saying.
Spokesman for the NRA, attaboy, Karl. So 92-93, just dropping in 27, 11.2 rebounds. Losing the round one to the Sonics.
Yep.
Because the Sonics are good. Sean Kemp is fathering all sorts of children. And there's another competitive team in the West coming out of Seattle.
It's crazy.
93-94, they beat the Spurs in the first round of the postseason. They're lucky in this postseason after Karl, making another all-star team, 25.2 a game, 11.5 rebounds. The Nuggets upset the Sonics. It was the first 8-1 upset. They were, I think, the 4 seed, the Jazz, or the 5 seed, after beating the Spurs. They drew the Nuggets. And they go up 3-0 in this series, but Denver somehow comes back to make it an actual series. It goes to a 7th game. They almost blow it, but they end up
beating them and going to the Western Conference Finals again.
Yep.
Only to meet up with the Rockets.
And Hakeem, the Dream. Olajuwon, and, doesn't work out too well for them.
It's such a, when you look at the teams in this Western, I know we bring it up, but it's such a hard road just getting to the finals. It's crazy.
Like the amount of obstacles you have to overcome, and then you're like, oh yeah, there's this Hakeem Olajuwon guy just dominating everyone. And mind you, this is the first year without Jordan,
So, and that's what people were saying was like, whoever's coming out of the West is going to take it because
there were so many good teams.
Yeah, and
you think the Knicks are going to? No. They should have won. They should have beat the damn Rockets.
That's true. That's the thing. That's the only thing that's so damn bad.
94-95, they win 60 games. 26.7 points a game, 10.6 rebounds. They have a cake easy. You're thinking they have a cake easy matchup. I think they're the number 2 seed or the 3 seed in the West, because this is year David Robinson wins the MVP, and they're I think the Spurs win 62. Unfortunately, the Rockets are back, and even though they had a kind of a struggle-filled regular season, they're like, let's pick up Clyde Drexler and crush Karl Malone's dreams. And they lose in the first round.
It's an interesting, because you almost look at it as like, oh, the Rockets should have been seeded higher, but they just didn't have a great regular season, and then you're just like, well,
they pulled it all together. And then this is the thing, I always felt bad for the Jazz in this era. It's just like, Jordan didn't have to put up with all of these. He had to play only one of them at the end. He didn't have to, go through an entire postseason, especially in the 90s when they were winning at maybe after their first title or so. Like the East outside of that was nowhere near as stacked as the West.
Yep.
95-96, just another amazing season for Karl. 25.7 points a game, 9.8 rebounds. They beat Portland in the first round. They beat San Antonio in the second round. And then they draw the Sonics. They were down 3-1 in the series, and they force a 7th game.
Yes.
This was if you ever want to watch a really dope postseason in the NBA, watch this series. It was really competitive from start to finish.
And this is the thing about them and the Sonics, is they match up almost like with Kemp being the power forward, with Peyton being the point guard. It's very much like what the Jazz have. So it's such a competitive 7-game series that they end up losing. So.
Yeah, it sucks for Karl. But 96, though, I did want to bring up that summer.
Yep.
Goes to the Olympics again. Another gold medal for Karl.
Yep.
Another gold medal. 96, 97, though, this is
Here we go.
his best season. I mean, this is his best season. 27.4 points a game, 9.9 rebounds, 64 and 18 in the top seed in the West. So the entire postseason in the Western Conference goes through Salt Lake City.
MVP this year.
There you go. Yay, Karl.
Over Jordan.
Over Jordan.
Which he was getting second behind Jordan, in those earlier votings and all of that kind of shit. And people were like, yeah, but he contributes so much more. And then people were just like, yeah, but Jordan's Jordan.
Well, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. But Karl's a bride here this season. Winning the first round against the Clippers in the playoffs. Western Conference semifinals, they beat the Lakers.
Yep.
And then they draw the Rockets.
And they finally are able to...
In the Western Conference, they get Barkley, Drexler, and Olajuwon.
Yeah.
Series goes to a 6th game. And at the buzzer... A man in his booty shorts in Stockton come through with a clutch 3.
I was just going to say, it's such a... It really is
103
a
on
great...
you, baby.
Yeah. It's a great... They have some great moments that you think about the Jazz, this era, that are just like imprinted in my mind where I'm like, that shot, damn. To take them to their first ever finals.
Oh, I know. It's insane. And who did they draw in these NBA finals, Chris?
You know who. The Miami Heat.
Ruining my dreams, the Chicago Bulls. Michael
Jordan's back.
When you look at how many rings Jordan stole away from some
West
of
Coast?
the greatest. No, I'm not even talking about the West Coast. Some of the greatest players in NBA history are ringless because of one person.
Because he has 6.
Yeah. And for my riots bit, you stole what could have been an awesome riot, Jordan. Damn you. Oh, so
Mormons finally letting loose.
I can drink caffeine now, goddammit, gah! Oh, so anyway, they lose in 6 games.
Yeah.
This is though the Bulls are just a better, more stacked team. Utah has 2 Hall of Famers, and the Bulls have Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and a way more stacked roster.
Well, this is because I think this was the one where they ended up scoring the least amount of points in one of the game. They had like 58 or some shit like that.
Yeah, and he, what was I going to say? He had strong showings in games 3 and 4.
Yes.
But by game 6, Steve Kerr plays a hero for Chicago.
Well, and the Bulls' defense was just that much better.
Rodman and Karl got into some tussles.
I was going to say lock him up and then get into his head and like all of that kind of shit. And then that was the thing about the Bulls in that era was they could really lock down your team. And
you could play defense in the 90s. People wanted to play defense in the 90s.
Yeah, that's more important. They wanted to play.
Oh, God. So 97, 98. 27 again. Mind you, he's in his mid-30s now.
Yep.
Just absolutely
not missing games.
Machine.
That's the thing at this point in his career where you're just like, oh, yeah, he hasn't missed a game like all season.
But you know what? When you look at him as far as physically, it was very David Robinson in the way. This dude has been jacked since the second he entered the league and stayed jacked.
And lean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not like a Shaq or,
Like 6'9", 260. All of that is muscle, dude.
Not like what Sean Kemp ended up. You know what I mean?
Like,
just where it kind of like it goes from being fucking ripped to horrible.
Going on.
To us.
I don't want to look like a freak. I'll take the moo-moo. Just want to watch Hunk if you're horny in peace, Karl. So they go 62 and 20.
Yep.
Best record in the NBA, which means they will have home court advantage if they make the finals, which they do. They beat the Rockets, the Spurs, and then sweep the Lakers in the West. That was the Nick Van Exel. We need to do an episode on him.
On Nick Van Exel.
Cancun on 3 series.
Yep.
Which made Kobe Bryant oh so happy.
Well, sweeping the Lakers in this one, people are like, all right, here we go. Jazz is looking like they're going to take it to...
They're going to win that title.
We know who they're going to face.
And we know so the last dance, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
That's who they're facing. The Chicago Bulls. Karl drops in 21 in game 1 where they win, 88 to 85. But then they drop 3 straight to Chicago. And a horrendous game in between there for Karl as well. He scores, though, in Game 5 to keep them alive in Chicago to send the series back to Utah. He drops in 39. And you're just like, God dang, Karl.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what they'd always say is like, if everything was in front of him, you weren't sure. But if you doubted him at all, that's when he'd play his best basketball. Game 6, he drops in 31 in this game. Unfortunately, with 15 or 18.9 seconds left, they're up 86-85. You're thinking this will go for a 7th game. It's going to be an epic matchup.
I'll tell you what is the best quote I heard from this. Who was the guy who moved up to president of basketball?
Frank Layden.
Layden goes, I saw him throw the ball into Karl with 18 seconds left. We're up 1. And I thought, we're going to win this game. And he's like, I'm thinking this as I see Jordan just stop under the hoop and fucking come right back. And you're just like, no. Like,
everyone in the arena is like, ah!
It's one of the most, for me, I think it's the most iconic basketball series. The steal from Jordan, Game 6, taking it back down,
and then
just shoving,
ripping the hearts out of it. Oh my God, dude.
And just that shot in the image of that, you know what I mean? Just to really stab Karl Malone's heart.
He stabbed the amount of alabaster anxiety in that arena,
Jesus.
Chris. My God. Those poor people having to watch that.
So many white faces went red. They were crying so hard.
They had to go back home to their wives, Chris. That's where they went. 87-86, and they lose the game. At this point, though, Karl is getting a little back and forth with the front office and the media kind of before the next season started, because it's the lockout season that's coming up. Years requesting a trade, Larry H. Miller calling the owner and then calling the media goons. But when Karl's angry, guess what he does? He just wins another goddamn MVP. That's what Karl Malone does.
Well, and I hate to say it, but he wanted more help. I feel like they did get him that. It's just like we were saying, Jordan just couldn't be beaten.
They try.
No matter who you have.
It's not like they're the Pirates where they just don't care.
Exactly.
It's like they tried, it just didn't work.
It just didn't work. 2 back-to-back finals, back-to-back Jordans. That's the only thing you can,
The important lesson here, kids, is never try. But he wins the MVP, averages 23.8 points a game, 9.4 rebounds. Plays in 50 games, but because it's the lockout.
It's the lockout.
They beat the Kings in round 1, and then in the Western Conference semis, they lose in 6 to the Blazers. In the Sabown Zone Blazers.
Yep, a different Blazers team, which is interesting.
Jail-blazing team, some might say.
Maybe.
So, as we enter kind of the latter parts of Karl's career in Utah, the pieces start breaking up. It's him and Stockton are still there, but the Spurs are a thing now. And the Lakers are now a thing with Kobe and Shaq.
And you can see that just because he's 37 now, whatever, 36. Just you could tell they need a rebuild. They can't necessarily build around him anymore, even though he literally was just the MVP.
Just dropping in buckets.
Yeah.
Like 99-2000, 25.5 points a game. 2000-2001, 23.2 points a game. 2001-2002, mind you, this dude is like 38 years old.
Yep.
Averaging 22.4. And then 2002-2003, 20.6 points a game, 7.8 rebounds, and a career-high 4.7 assists. Mind you, the team is exiting the playoffs in like round 1 every year.
Yep.
But
he's still
39 years old.
He's still killing it. And then he does the thing that I don't think anybody can talk shit on, is he goes and tries to get a ring.
He ring chases. And if you criticize anyone who ring chases, you can go and fuck yourself. Sports is about winning.
Well, after 15 plus years in one town, to go and be like, all right, I'm going to try and get a ring. He goes to the Lakers. He meets up with his enemies.
His frenemies, Shaq, Kobe, Gary Payton is now there.
Rick Fox.
That man's hair.
Woo!
Oh, boy. Let's get that classy Canadian.
And this team,
it's built to destroy people, is what it is.
They look like everybody thinks, and then...
Well, coming into this season, it was kind of rough because, 3 days after Karl signs, Kobe has those allegations come up, and Karl and Kobe don't really get along after this.
Yes.
And then there's friction between all of the teammates and egos, but they're winning basketball games.
Yes, on the court, they look very together. Off the court, I feel like it was 2 big egos of maybe not Peyton, but obviously like Shaq was having problems with Kobe. Kobe was having problems with Malone. Everybody hated Isaiah Thomas.
I mean, everyone does, Chris.
But that's what we're kind of seeing with this. But on court, they're killing it. And then we get into Carl's first injury.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up. You want to bring up the injury? Yeah. He misses 39 games. He injures his knee in December of that year.
And it's a bad sprain. That's what they were saying. It's like his age, all of it made it to where he really couldn't come back. And he comes back, I think, either right before the playoffs or in the playoffs.
Yeah, so he's doing well in the postseason. He's finished, I believe he's averaging over 11 a game. They go into the postseason. They beat the Suns. They beat the Rockets. No, the game was against the Suns. They beat the Rockets. They beat the Spurs.
Yes.
And then go into the conference finals against Minnesota and just dominate them. And Karl this season is providing a lot of defensive help in the paint for them.
Defensive help, defensive rebounds. He is also there
points in the paint. Yeah.
Points in the paint, and this is what also they were talking about was he really took the leadership role of being like
he wanted to be the adult in the room.
Yes.
Yeah. Because Shaq was,
Shaq is Shaq, man. We can't.
Being a genie and not telling people how large his penis is. Kobe's doing stuff. And then Gary Payton, I don't know. He had a good season with him.
Yeah, Payton's Payton, but man, we want to see Shaq's cock.
God, we really do, Chris. Hashtag show us your penis, Kazam. I bet you he nicknamed his penis Kazam. Anyway, they go to the NBA Finals and play the Detroit Pistons, who are a very inside-based team as far as where their defensive rebounding and point scoring.
They're a very Detroit Pistons team. Yeah. That's the only thing.
The main nemesis.
Wallace. I'll tell you what sucks is
it's hurt in this series too.
And a lot of people were questioning if he was came back a little too soon, if they could have just sat him that first series. But I just feel like this was his age coming back because he sprains his knee again.
Game 3.
And then the Lakers just aren't the same.
This was a huge upset, I remember, at the time. People didn't really know how good Detroit was, but, I mean, at the time you were thinking, they're going to steamroll, and they lost in 5 games, dude. They lost in 5 games.
That's what's crazy, because you're right. A lot of people thought the Lakers were just going to annihilate this Detroit Pistons team. Malone goes out injured, and it really falls apart.
Yeah, and after this season, ends up retiring. Retires back in Utah, February 13th, 2005, which was his mom's birthday, his late mother's birthday. Then by 2006, he has his number 32 retired by the Jazz. He didn't wear 32 in L.A., though. He wore 11, which was his dream team number because, there's another 32 for the Lakers. And then also have a bronze statue outside the Delta Center that says Stockton and Malone, the intersection of those streets, which is pretty cool. But
that's his playing career.
Let's talk about his playing career one more time before we get into
Give me some
stiff. 1,476 games, 1,471 starts. That is an NBA record.
I don't think you'll ever see that.
No.
Especially in today's
load management. Fuck, dude.
Especially in today's game. It's almost like, Ripken Jr.'s kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you're just nobody's ever going to do that. The team is going to shut you down.
Yeah, the team with what they pay you now is going to say, maybe just have a night off.
Yep.
This game means nothing to us.
Yes.
For his career, 25 points a game, 10.1 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 51.6 field goal percentage. He played 20 years in the goddamn NBA.
And made half of his shots. It's insane.
2-time MVP, 14-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, 11 times All-NBA first team in this era. That's how good Karl freaking Malone was. The 50th and 75th anniversary teams.
Yep.
2-time gold medalist. And in the NBA or in the Basketball Hall of Fame twice. Once as a player, once for the Dream Team. Much like David Robinson.
Yep.
But now...
Well, he ended his career, too, as second
all-time leading scorer.
Second in scoring.
To Roger Murdoch, the co-pilot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. But now...
Oh, God, here we go. Oh,
when Malone was in college...
We're going to the Malone zone, everybody.
Holy shit. That's what he was calling it back in the day.
That's what he was calling it, baby. You've entered the Malone zone. Okay. Here. All right, let's do it. Let's just get into it. So, first year of college.
He meets up with a woman, impregnates her.
With twins.
And I'm pretty sure she was 17.
I think they were both 17.
Yeah.
Or he was 18,
Or he was,
17.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean.
It's not crazy.
It's not crazy. And this stuff happens.
In lower Arkansas, it happens.
It does. Upper Louisiana.
Whatever.
But no, so he's pregnant with twins.
Denies that they're his.
And apparently, what he said, she even told him they weren't his.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's necessarily swept under the rug, but 2 kids, both of whom play at Louisiana Tech in basketball. His daughter, Cheryl, not Cheryl Miller.
Ends up going, she had the energy.
She had the energy.
She ends up going and playing professional and winning a title with
Detroit.
Spark? Yeah,
Detroit. The team that she even told her dad who was at the game, now go win yours.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
But, the paternity suits ended up coming out for this particular relationship for Karl here, which isn't crazy. We see this with athletes a lot.
Yep.
I mean, this just happens, and when you're making a lot of money and you've fathered children, they'll come after you.
Illegitimately. And then we get into
this is the I won't say I can forgive the first one, but that's in the realm of shit that happens a lot. This next one, oh boy.
It's pretty wild.
Chris, should we even be talking about this?
Somebody has to.
I guess you're right.
He impregnates
in 1984
a 13-year-old girl. I actually think she might have been 12 when he, and then she.
Are you fucking serious?
And then I think she gave birth at 13.
So let me
you know what, man? This is all speculation because what I heard was he picked her up from recess and then.
Oh my God! Do you know what's horrifying, Chris?
It's insane.
When they used to do To Catch a Predator, right? They would set the bait age of the kid, like from behind the screen, as 13. Do you know why they set it that low? Because of fucking age of consent laws, where it's so outside of what could be construed as age of 13. She's 12, Charlie. She's 12.
It's fucking crazy. And then I saw that because he had a paternity suit against him for this one too, but they weren't trying to like bring up charges of like sexual assault. They were literally just like, you should help pay for your kid and you're just like, I thought, how is he not in jail?
Dude, 13!
It's crazy.
I mean, it's higher than your dream team number, but Jesus Christ, Karl.
It's... and then that kid ends up going and playing professional football. What was his name? I forget his name. Demetrius.
Yeah, he played for, I believe, the Bills, Eagles, and Cowboys.
Yep.
He played like a decade in the league.
No, he was a great... I think he was offensive line?
Yeah, he was an offensive lineman. But yeah, so Karl, that blood test too for your youngest, as far as illegitimate, 99.3%. You're the father. I mean, if Maury Povich came out, he'd be like, "You're the father," and disgusting.
Yes.
I mean,
it's crazy to think that one of the greatest, if not the greatest, power forward of all time. I love Tim Duncan more. That's just preference, but statistic-wise, he is the greatest power forward. Has this, and it's almost swept under the rug.
Is that why he was popular in Utah?
Oh my God, they loved him in Utah.
Oh my God!
Now I get it.
Oh
no, because I'll tell you what. I bet they hated him because he didn't make them their wives.
That's
he was supposed
true.
to be stacking these wives.
Yeah, it'll get you closer with your special PJs.
You have to stack all the way up. It literally blows my mind, though.
But nobody talks about this.
This is what I mean. It's not.
Could you imagine if, I think it's just because it was the 90s, if this broke out on social media now.
Oh my God, it would. It's crazy.
Because like it came out, I think, in one of those like tabloid things, like a National Enquirer-esque thing where this information came out about these paternity suits.
And you'd see it and you're like, whoa, is that real? You know what I mean? It's such a...
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the 90s were a laissez-faire decade, but I don't know about this one.
This was actually, I think he was doing it in the 80s because he was in college, so it was even more.
No, but I mean, people accepting it and just being like,
the news came out. Yeah.
Like, holy cow.
It's crazy.
But Karl Malone, he always delivers, just like the mailman. one of the greatest power forwards of all time, if not the greatest. And
a huge piece of shit.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everybody.